This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. We start this show, as we always do, with a big thank you to everyone who has subscribed to our podcast and followed us on social media. If you're not already subscribed, we are on all the popular podcast platforms. That's Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. We also have a show page on anchor.com, so you can go there, search for the PR Podcast. You'll find our homepage, and you can even click a button and record a message to send to us that we might even play on an upcoming show. Please do send your feedback, good, bad, or otherwise, because that's what this show is all about. It's creating a resource that is valuable to you. So check us out on social media. Continue to send your messages and your questions you want answered on the show, and we'll make this something that you can tune into and use every single week. We have got another spectacular guest this week, so let's get right into it. Roger Clark is the features reporter at NY1 in New York City. He's been a fixture on the station since its earliest days, and he seeks out the stories of the real people of New York City in every neighborhood of the 5 boroughs. He's also very active on social media and very entertaining, I will add, and he is an admired professional and a true friend. Roger, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jody, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit about, how long have you been at NY1 now?
19 years back in August was 19. So I started in August of 2001. I had been, I grew up in New York City in Queens, and I had been in upstate for about 10 years, kind of fighting my way back, working in local radio, local TV, and finally got the opportunity to come back to my hometown and tell stories in August of 2001. Sadly, it was just in time for 9/11. Which was an interesting way to kind of come back home, but certainly I was glad that I was able to be here and see the rebirth of my hometown.
Tell us a little bit about what you do as a reporter for NY1. You play what I'll say is a unique role there. You are not the sort of the typical chase the story of the day kind of reporter. You are enterprising. You dig up some very interesting stories, what I refer to as like the real people stories. And you tell some terrific stories about New York City. But tell us what you do every day and how you go about it.
Yeah, I mean, I basically, there are times when, it's an all hands on deck situation, and I consider myself pretty versatile, thankfully. So I am able to cover the breaking news stories when needed. But for the majority of the days of the year, I'm covering what, in the past, there used to be the expression was fluffy stories, but and I'm okay with that. But but really what it is, it's all the good things that people love in the city. It could be a great cultural institution opening a brand new exhibit up, or it could be a nonprofit having a food drive in their community, or even sometimes I kind of like fly by the seat of my pants, and I created my own little series called End of the Line, where I travel to the last stop on a subway line and just kind of explore the community, and with literally me and my camera person just walk into like diners and shops and barber shops and beauty salons to go, hey, what's going on here? Tell us about your neighborhood. And so things like that. And it's a lot of fun. Most of the time I'm coming up with my own story ideas. I of course have to work with the assignment desk and tell them so they know where I am and I'm not on Renegade or anything. But mainly, and actually in a big part of it is thanks to you and people in the public relations field, because that's where I get a lot of my story ideas. You can't say yes to everything, but I have to say that I've been really fortunate to have some great relationships over the years where folks have been able to hook me up with some great stories.
Well, and we're going to get into how you interact with PR people, but going back to the story you were telling about, and I love that new series that you've got, the End of the Line
Oh,
series,
thanks.
because anyone who lives in New York City, who has taken or does business in New York City, taken the subway, those ends of the line may be familiar and may not be familiar. I mean, I rode the subway for years when I was working in New York, living and working in New York City. And I probably can count on one hand the number of times I actually went to the end of the line of one of the subway lines. Tell us a little bit about how you developed that idea, and what you're going after when you go out on those stories.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it, so I like to be on the show in the morning. You know, I basically I'm part of our morning show, which is called Mornings on One. And before that, it was just called News All Morning, and it's hosted by Pat Kiernan, who's been here even longer than me, and he's a very well known face in New York City television.
Pat's a movie star.
Yeah, exactly. And
Well,
you know,
you've been
when
in
I
a couple
first,
movies. Haven't you been in a couple movies too?
you know,
Playing
not like
yourself?
I sadly, well, I got to say, my one movie appearance was in the Smurfs movie, and um, the big question I got from people was, "How many Smurfs did you meet?" And the answer was zero, because I would have loved to meet a Smurf. I did get to do a Law and Order SVU last year, which was really cool. That was exciting. I was like, let's just say this. I've been on TV, TV and radio for 30 years. I've never been that nervous in my life. I was literally shaking as I was doing my lines. It was crazy. Ice-T was there. I was kind of freaking out a little bit, but it was, apparently I did okay. So, but yeah, I mean, it's like, um, the thing with me is that I like to be on the show. So I want to be on it as many times a week as I can. That could be 4, it could be 5. So my thing was, sometimes I come up with the ideas, and this is going to sound crazy, is because I got nothing else going on. So I brainstorm, and I'll sit down, like I'll have me and my videographer. I'll say, all right, we got it. What can we do? And so I've come up with, and you might have seen them. I did this thing about how every borough has a Park Avenue, how every borough has a main street. And it was that's a trick question, because Manhattan's main street is actually on Roosevelt Island, which is politically part of Manhattan. So there's not really a main street in the island of Manhattan, but it's on Roosevelt Island. So these like little like quirky things, and people like it. People love like trivia, people love history of the city, and people love to like kind of be surprised and be like, what? I didn't know that. Are you kidding me? And that's what I try. I try and come up with ideas like that.
And they're so great. And again, I refer to them as like real people stories, which are the kind of stories that I love to tell in my job when I'm representing clients. And I always talk to clients, and I think you'll probably agree with me. All stories are about people. They may be eventually be about a thing or an institution or a place to go or whatever, but at their core, they're always about people. Do you bring that focus to what you do? You obviously do, right?
Yeah, well, like for instance, on the end of the lines, like I did one the other day, and I stormed it. We stormed into this. It was a little tiny grocery store that really catered mostly to Albanian and Balkan foods. So that's a real, talk about a niche audience, but there's a pretty big Albanian population in the Bronx. So the lady is looking at me like I'm nuts, and I'm telling her, "Hi, I'm Roger Clark. I'm from NY1. We do this end of the line." I had gone through the whole spiel, but I got to know this lady really well, and she like started like giving me Albanian candy bars and Albanian soda. Try this, try this, try this. Next thing I know, I'm practically friends with this woman, and then people get to see her. Then she becomes part of the story. So it's not just about the last stop on a train line; it's about the people who are there. I talked to a guy who made. He was in a little booth, and he made fresh juices outside of one of the delis there, and here I am. I'm talking to Jose. I never met him before, but now the whole city's going to find out that this guy's a hardworking guy. He loves his job. He makes friends every day with his customers. Yeah, so things like that. So really, you're right. I mean, I want New York is a great town. It's a diverse town. There's so many people from so many different walks of life, and it's fun to show them. It's fun to meet them. And I sometimes there's people they're all in my head from like 19 years of being here. Like I still remember, and sometimes you'll see them again and be like, "Hey, remember me? I met you like 10 years ago." I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" You make friends. It's fun.
Well, and you've got to be one of the you are one of the more recognizable people in New York City media. I've got to imagine that you approach some people and they instantly feel like they know you.
Yeah, a lot of times though, it's funny. And I love this. They won't confess at first that they know who I am, and it'll be at the end. They'll be like, "Oh, okay. See you later, Roger. I'll see you tomorrow on TV."
I'll see you in my
And I'm
living
like,
room, right?
"Oh, you watch New York 1?" Because for a while, because at the beginning, it seems like I'm trying to explain, like, there's this TV station. It's called New York 1. It's like 24-hour news, blah, blah, blah. And, and then afterwards, they kind of fess up and say, "Yeah, I know who you are." So,
And New York 1, I mean, going back to the origins of New York 1, really kind of an anomaly when you think about it. A 24-hour TV news station in New York City. I mean, if it belongs anywhere on the planet, it belongs in New York City. But there are also real challenges to creating a 24-hour news product. I mean, I came from a 24-hour radio news background, working for 1010 Wins, WCBS Radio. There are real challenges to finding stories. I mean, on the one hand, maybe there are too many stories to report. On the other hand, you've still got to go and find them, right?
Yeah, it's surprising though, what you'll have a period where it'll be they'll just keep coming at me. I'll get emails, I'll get Facebook messages, I'll get Instagram messages, I'll get Twitter messages. People will tweet at me with ideas, and I'm like, wow, that's a good idea. And then you'll hit those dry spells, and I, that's when I have to like come up with those end of the line and things like that, because I'm just like, wow, this is. And there's certain times of year around the holiday season, of course, it's always a little tough. In the summer, people on vacation, but yeah, that's there. You definitely have those dry spells, and that's when it really becomes challenging. You're like, okay, I got to have something for tomorrow. It's 10 a.m. What am I going to do today?
Right.
you know,
And
so
so that's a great segue, talking about where you get your ideas from. And you mentioned before that you get a lot of pitches from PR people like me. Um, what do you think goes into to a great idea for a story? What gets your attention when whether it's an email or the tweet or the Facebook message, what gets your attention about a story?
Well, it's, a lot of times it's, I think it's one of the good things about doing it for a long time is there are a lot of the PR professionals I deal with have a familiarity with what I do and the type of stories I do and what it takes to be able to pull it off, especially for instance, like I do the mornings. So one of the biggest problems for a lot of people is I need you to open up your butcher shop to do a story about meat, which I probably wouldn't be doing these days, but at 6 a.m. Like I need the doors open, I need the lights on, and someone has to do it. Now, some people will be like, "Oh God, no, I can't. I'm not. I can't wake. I don't. No, I don't do that. I don't wake up that early. Sorry." And then other people will immediately be like, "Yes, yes, yes," because they know they're going to get this unbelievable publicity, and the story's going to run over and over and over, and it's going to be. Now we have a new news app which is on, and you get hits there. So it's really invaluable to be able to, if you're willing to take that extra effort. And the great PR people who I work with are the ones who will say, don't worry, I'll get them there. They'll be there at 6 o'clock. Whereas others have been like, could you be there at 8 p.m. at night? And I'm like, no, I can't. I'm going to sleep because I do the morning. So that's
Right.
always an issue. So I think that the great ideas are the ones that are doable for me because of my schedule. So like I can't cover a band playing at 9 p.m. at night. That's not going to be the story that I'm going to do because it's not some. But if you're able to get me something where I could be there 9, 10, 11 a.m., shoot it, write it up that later that day, and then have it ready for the next day, and then let us in the next morning so we could be live from. Especially if Jody, if it's like for instance, me and you did something great at Eigner's Chocolate Shop in Queens, the legendary great old fashioned chocolate shop. Now, if I stood outside for the live shots in front of Eigner's, I would have been okay. But you got me into where they make the chocolate, and we're making chocolate while we're doing it. It's so much better television.
Yeah, and that's there's a good example. And you mentioned the rock band piece because I know you're a drummer in a band, and a terrific one. But there's a couple examples of sort of the PR people knowing what you do, and sort of pitching you in your sweet spot. Whether it's the band example or whether it's that particular thing that you and I did together had a Game of Thrones tie-in, and I know you and I are a little bit of geeks. I'm a huge geek.
Yes.
So I knew that you would at least get it off the bat. But you're right. The extra mile, or maybe the last mile of what you need to do as a PR person is making sure that you're giving the reporter the elements that they need to do their job. And I've said this over and over again, and I sometimes catch flack for it. I have as much interest in taking care of the reporter as I do taking care of the client, because if I give the reporter what they need to do the thing that I want them to do, they'll probably do it. If it works, if it makes sense, if they like it, if they can, there are a whole bunch of variables that go into it. But at its core, I need to deliver to you as the reporter the things you need to pull it off, right?
Oh, for sure. And like I even look back to another time we worked together, and this was much more of a grand scale. I mean, when we were at Eigner's Chocolate, it was me, you, and the couple who owned the place. Another was when the Enterprise space shuttle was on its way to the Intrepid, and it was
You're hitting me in
landing
my
and
geek again.
right, which was, I got to tell you, it was one of my favorite stories of all time. But I remember seeing you that day, and you were definitely Harry. You had like, so, I mean, that was a huge event. You had Leonard Nimoy there, you had this person, and somehow, some way, I remember you, like you handled everybody like in a good personable fashion. Like you weren't yelling at us and screaming at it. Like, and I always remembered that. I was like, Jody's a good guy because he didn't have to be that way, because that's one of those events, sometimes those events, the press, we get thrown into a pen, and we kind of get treated like cattle, and nobody cares. But I always felt like you were one of those people who did, PR professionals who don't do that. And that day you made sure we had everything we needed, and we were just the local station, local New York One station. There's network television there, and I always appreciated that. And I think, I have to say, there have been some times like when the Super Bowl was in town and the NFL, and they kind of didn't really care that much about us being there. Like it seemed like they were more concerned about the networks and the national stuff. And I always thought that was very silly on their part, because if you're going to have free events for the community in New York City, why wouldn't you want the local station to tell people about it? And I always thought that, and it kind of felt like second class citizens to a certain extent. Same thing when Major League Baseball was in town with the All-Star games. you know I don't know, I just got a bad, so I always appreciated that you gave us the time of day, at a huge event like that, because it's not always the case. Definitely the communications people at some of these major places don't appreciate that local television is important when you're doing a local community event. So
Well,
anyway.
that's very kind of you to say. I really appreciate that, and I treat everybody completely equally. My attitude is I'm going to tell you the truth. If I can get it for you, I'll get it for you. If I can't get it for you, I'm just going to tell you I can't get it, or we can't get to it, or maybe we can come back to it later, or whatever. But most of those things, like whether it's that live hit at the local chocolate shop, or it's a big thing like the arrival of the Enterprise space shuttle at JFK Airport, it's all in the planning, really. I remember there was a lot of planning that we put into getting the shot of the space shuttle on the back of the 747 landing. And behind the scenes, this is something that you were not involved in, any of the media were involved in. We had let's say a very heated discussion with the Port Authority of New York to get the media out onto the tarmac in that little grassy space in between runways, so they could get that classic shot of the landing, right? Because it's so important, right? I mean, it's landing in New York. You need to see the thing landing, right?
Right.
Especially for TV and for photographers. And so I kind of went to the wall on that to make sure that you guys were out there. I also recall we got 2 small buses, and we put all the essential videographers and photographers on those buses to take them out to that spot. And I got up onto the bus, and I talked to a bunch of the guys and girls who were going to go out there. And these are people who do stakeouts. They've seen dead bodies. Like, they do all kinds of things in the middle of the night. I mean, videographers and street reporters have seen it all. And I said to the guys, and I said to the people who were going out there, I'm really jealous. You're going to be out on the tarmac the only time in history that a space shuttle lands at an airport in New York City. And I wish I could be with you. And they all kind of flipped me off, and as in a good way, right? With good humor, in the way that grizzled street reporters and videographers will do. When they came back on the bus, they were jumping out of their pants.
Yeah.
They were so excited. And that's what I remember about being a street reporter too, was you get to do stuff that nobody else gets to do. And so now that I've been doing PR for the last couple of decades, I never forget that adrenaline. I never forget the excitement, the true excitement of why you got into this in the first place, is to tell these stories. And so that's why I try to give people, this is a very long way of coming back to what you said before, give people what they need to tell the story that they need to tell to their audience. And remember that it's not just about the reporter and the videographer and but it's also about their audience. They're providing the service to their audience. So help them speak to their audience.
Yeah, and no, absolutely, and it goes a long way, and and it creates you remember stuff like that. You want to work with that person again. Like if they have a pitch for you a couple months later, you're like, it might not be exactly something you want, but then at least, you may be able to work something out with them because you know that, like you said, they're gonna make things happen for you and they're gonna give you the best product possible.
Let's bring it full circle here a little bit. What do you see? I mean, news is, it feels like news is always under fire, right? Newsrooms are shrinking, budgets shrink, people, jobs disappear. It's really a challenging business to be in. What do you see as the future of TV reporting? Let's talk about your specific industry of TV reporting. What do you see as the future, and how might it change, do you think, over the next few years?
Well, I have a great example right off the bat, and it's something that's being done right and now where I work in NY1. We about a month ago had a boot camp for a week with a gentleman named Michael Rosenblum, he was there at the beginning of NY1 and kind of like one of those guys who was, when NY1 first started. You remember we were kind of the creator of the one-man band, for better or for worse, which was a reporter who also shoots his own stuff and in some cases edits and everything like that. And that's where things are headed to a certain extent, but he now is a believer in the technology of the iPhone. And we spent a week and shot a couple of pieces entirely shooting and editing on our iPhones. And I have now done, in the past 2 weeks, I think I've shot about 5 pieces that way. So picture, I do the live shot in the morning and then I tell my videographer, hey, I'll see you later. And I go shoot it by myself. Now, this has been interesting because I've actually had to explain to your colleagues in the business, all right, here's the deal. When I walk through that door, you're not going to see a camera person. You're going to see me with a phone. So
Wow.
and it's definitely, so I was like, just get your clients ready, get your clients ready to realize that it's still going to look great. It's going to be a nice piece, but and in some cases they like it better because, one thing about NY1 is we've always traveled light, that. So
Definitely.
like people are shocked when we show up at stories and it's just like a couple of us and we don't have a sound guy and a boom mic and this and a trailer and this and that. It's just us. Now it's even more pared down because and there are going to be stories where, and I think this is one of the things my boss told me is there's going to be stories where he's going to be like, okay, yeah, you need a camera person for that. But there's also going to be a lot where they just want me to do it with the phone now.
Yeah,
And then I
more
edit
of the
it myself
day-to-day maybe.
on iMovie. Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, I've been doing that for a while, shooting my own video and photos when I have press conferences, hold events or availabilities or what have you, because I want to be able to send that information to the desks that weren't able to come. So whether that's a TV desk or, a weekly newspaper or what have you, and some will use it and some won't. And, some have rules and regulations about why they can or can't use it. But the idea being that I default to my DNA. I want to give them the pieces that they need to cover the story that I want them to cover, if it's at all possible. But to hear that you're doing it now, that the broadcast TV is doing it on the iPhone, that is an amazing thing to hear. And that you're editing on the phone as well. I mean, that's got to have challenges.
Yeah. I mean, apparently, like from what I understand, we're going to be getting iPads to be able to do that. So it'll be a little
larger
bit,
screen. Yeah.
Yeah. As far as the editing, I'm doing all right with it on the phone, but the one thing is that it definitely is, it changes it. Like, for instance, I do a lot of stories where I try stuff. So it's hard to shoot yourself trying things on when it's just you. And actually last week, it's funny, and this is something that you would do, is that one of the PR people I work with grabbed the phone and took a shot of me like eating something so I could include that in my piece. So basically
helping you out, right?
Yeah, because she said to me, oh, Roger, you always do these things. You need to, I want to see you doing it. And, so that might go by the wayside in certain situations now because of just the limitations of that. Now I figure out there's tricks you could do. You could lean it up against the wall somewhere. And like I was doing a skateboarding story and I skateboarded towards the phone and I had it up on a ledge. I mean,
Yep.
you figure out little tricks, but it's, but it's not as, like, I can't imagine I'd be able to do, like, for instance, a trapeze class. I don't know, how am I going to shoot myself on the trapeze unless I hold the phone while I'm swinging, or who knows?
Strap it to your head.
Yeah, exactly.
How much of what you do, I know you are very active on social media personally, but how much of what of your product, of your professional product, is also funneled into NY1's social media? I've got to imagine it's a lot, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, these days, every time I file a story, I'm now also writing up a version for the news app. That's something that we didn't do in the past. In the old days, the web staff itself would take our script and write it.
Mm.
They have thrown that over to us now, so they want us to do it. I guess the theory is that we know the story better. There's less chance for error.
Hmm.
So, but that does add a little. It makes your day longer, obviously, because I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I wrote for my school newspaper in high school, so I don't want to just copy and paste my broadcast script into the website. It's got to be different. Like, for instance, if I'm starting a piece where I'm like, hey, look at that airplane. Well, if I'm writing something and you can't see the airplane, so I got to change my way I write it. So it's a totally different. So to me, it becomes it's a different kind of story. I mean, and just going back to journalism school, there is a difference between how you write a broadcast story and how you write a newspaper or magazine story.
Yep.
So that's a whole, to me, the social media aspect and that web aspect is like almost a whole nother job. You know.
Oh, for sure. I completely agree with you. But it also sounds like, and I know because I know you, um, the personal investment that you have in the work that you do will clearly make a better product across all of those platforms, right? You're doing something unique for broadcast, then you're taking that and you're turning it into something that is unique for all these other pieces of the ultimate product, whether it's the web story or the app story or something that goes on Twitter or what have you. It's
Right,
really
exactly. Yeah. And I've been like, lately what I've been doing is, now that I know how to use the iMovie better from editing pieces, I've been doing kind of what you do. So I'll throw together. So if I'm going to tweet out a video of, hey, guess what? I'm in Jersey. I'm in the Bronx today at this great bakery. Well, I'm not going to just like show you a picture of a cannoli. I'm actually going to go back into the video and cut it together, maybe like, a 30-second little like montage, and it looks a lot better. So in a way, I mean, I have to say there's certain learning to use the iMovie app and being able to do this has made my social media product better. Oh, just in the last couple of weeks, I would think.
that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation. We are going to go into a section of our podcast now that we call rapid fire. This is where we ask our guests questions and they give us short or even one-word answers. We're kind of stealing it from inside the actor's studio here, Roger. So
Oh, sure. Yeah.
with your indulgence, here come 5 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
All right.
All right, here we go. Favorite news source? Let me guess.
Uh, well, I'm going to say I love,
other than New York, other than your own, other than NY1, where do you go for news?
10-10 wins.
All right. Favorite social media platform?
Twitter.
The drink you can't do without.
It's right in front of me now. It's really horrible, but it's called Monster Rehab Tea Lemonade Energy Drink. I don't drink coffee.
Wow.
I know. It's like, yeah, I'm 15 still, the way with my beverages.
You and me both. Your favorite on the run food?
Yeah, a chicken salad sandwich.
Nice. And last question. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
Uh, an amateur bowler.
Nice, nice. All
I just
right.
want to join like 3-4 bowling leagues, and that's it.
In addition to the drumming?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't mind. I don't know if I want to be that old guy behind the drums, but yeah, I guess these days it doesn't matter.
We're all old guys, right?
I know. Tell me about it.
Well, Roger, this has been a great conversation. Please let people know how they can find you online.
Sure. I mean, on Twitter, and I'm on Twitter a lot, which you probably know. I don't know. I kind of fell in love with it because all I do is talk. So I figured I might as well just tweet too. So it's Roger Clark, 41. Same for Instagram. And 41, the significance is Tom Seaver, of course, who we just lost recently. He's my favorite baseball player. I'm a big Mets fan. So, and then on Facebook, I'm just Roger Clark. Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, I don't have my own page or anything like a fan page or anything. It's just me.
Yep, I think the social media is where you shine the best. So that's terrific. Roger,
Thanks.
thank you again. And thank you everyone for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show and to connect us with us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram at the PR Podcast. Send us a question or comment. We can try to answer it here on the air. And we'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.